right. Good morning, everyone. It is just me today. I wanted to do a second part, kind of a follow up to what I talked about last week, which was the Landman series, which I have enjoyed watching so much and found so interesting. So, just to kind of recap what I went over last week, I talked about how the Allie Larder character and Ainsley, her daughter, they are cast as very feminine. They wear very provocative clothing, high energy, but also nurturing characters. Very entertaining, and they are train wrecks. To be clear, they're disaster, but they're very entertaining, and they're very opposite of kind of the, I would say, boss bitch women that we've been fed in through Hollywood for so long now. So the way that they are painted is just very, very countercultural, I guess I would say. Anyways, I did a whole episode on that and how what I found interesting in that was that their tones, the way in which they speak is very upbeat. The way in which they dress is very girly and light. They care a lot about their appearance. There's always like makeup and cute outfits. They go to the gym a lot. They work out. Very different from what we've been fed. And I think the propaganda that we've received basically my whole life from the feminist movement. So I noted that. And I noted that I feel like a lot of men in America can never say that they wish their wives cared more about those specific things, but Taylor Sheridan did in this show, and that was interesting. So, the one character I didn't really talk about much, her name is Rebecca, and she is the attorney for the big oil guy. And she actually is exactly what feminists have fed to us for years. She is high powered, very smart. She's a bulldog. She's a go getter. She wears pantsuits. She always looks very professional. Um, she looks like she could kick your ass in the courtroom. And I think that is, at least in my life, what I've watched in TV, what I was taught in college and high school. Like, that is what women now and girls are taught that the goal is. That's what we should strive to be. That's if you want to be successful, if you want to be like, you know, noted as valuable in our society or culture, that's how we should aim to be like her. And that is what I did aim to be. I aimed to be her. I was super serious about my job. I was really competitive. I wanted to make as much money. Actually, and for me, it was never really about how much money I made, but what I cared about was being as successful as the guys, if not more successful than them. And so, what I mean by that is I wanted to loan as much money as the guys because that was the measure of success that we had in my field. And obviously, with that, if you're loaning more money, you're making more money. But what I cared about more was like seeing my name at the email that they sent at the end of every month of like who is the top producers in the company. That is what really mattered to me. And I didn't care how manly I had to be to do that. And actually, I was encouraged to be that way. Like, it's if you're in that kind of role or in that kind of industry, being extremely feminine is not something that you're trained to do. They kind of like train that out of you, actually. And it's interesting because I think that there was like some novelty to it if you were an attractive female. Like, they still wanted you to be attractive, but not too attractive. But they wanted you to dress very professionally and very much like a man. So, like, it was, button up collared shirts, suit jackets and, pantsuits. That's what we wore. Sometimes we would wear pencil skirts, but not really. It was mainly like the pantsuit was the uniform. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think it's totally fine to wear that if you want to. But the way that I see it now is that we were trying to behave and dress as much like men as we could so that we could be respected by men. And I'm wondering now, I'm like, did any of that even like play a role in how the men saw us? I don't know. And w- for me, you received a lot of praise for the success, like loaning more money and being more successful. And so it encouraged those behaviors. And like I said before, there's nothing wrong with any of those things specifically. But when it translates into your marriage or your relationships, it does become problematic. So the Rebecca character in the show, she starts dating, I guess he's a geologist or something like that. And they are having a good time together. And I think she finds him attractive because he's funny and he's kind of like a wild spirit. He's not your boardroom type. He's very like different than she is. But he's still like an attractive, manly looking male. And he's doing a very dangerous job. And so she starts hooking up with him and makes it very clear that they are not in a relationship. They are not in a relationship. They're just having fun. This means nothing, whatever. So basically, like behaving like a man would, the sex means nothing. It's not hurting her emotionally or anything like that to not be committed. And eventually, they have this big falling out where he says to her basically, you're such a control freak and that's why you're never going to be able to fall in love. And what happened was is they had a meeting with the boss and she wanted him to say a certain thing to, bolster her narrative or whatever she was trying to sell to the boss. And he didn't. He said what he wanted to say and kind of directly defied or whatever she had implied she needed him to say in this meeting. And after the meeting, she just lost it on him. Was like, "How could you do that?" And he basically was like, "Listen, I'm my own person. I don't answer to you. You can't control everything in life." And so that scene reminds me so much of myself, trying to control everything. And with my husband, like just trying to be the dominant one in the relationship because that's how I was successful in my job, was to be dominant and to get things done and to be resourceful and to know what the goal is and to put the things in place to achieve the goal. And with my husband, I was trying to do the same thing. I was like trying to be the one in control and dominate the relationship. And so you don't really see it while you're doing it because you're being praised to do it at work and you're trained to do it. And so you're just behaving the way that you've been taught to do things. But then when you're in your relationship and you're treating your husband that way, you don't realize that you're totally undermining him and you're tearing everything apart that you say you wanted. Like I think most career women would say, I want a family, I want kids, I want to have a loving marriage. But then when you come home and act like that, you're totally destroying the things you're saying that you want. And that's really like a hard pill to swallow once you wake up to the fact that society told us to do this and it's a lie. Like it doesn't prove to be successful in the home. Not saying that you can't work. I'm not saying anything like that. I think a lot of people think that I have like very trad wife views. And on some things, I would say that I do. But on this, I think what Suzanne Venker and I talked about a lot was it's more, I think, the mindset and how you approach the relationship and how you speak to your husband that matters. And if you are in a job where you're a type A and you're alpha and you're a bulldog and a boss babe and whatever all the things are that we think are good, and if you can't turn that off when you get home and check that at the door, which a lot of people like me, I don't think can do that, your relationship is going to suffer. Something's going to suffer. And for me, it wasn't just my relationship suffering, it was my kids suffering too. One thing that I've noticed when I talk to my friends that have kids is a lot of moms, once they have their kids, they still want to work or they still have to work, like for financial reasons. And they have jobs that they are okay with, for lack of a better term, just half-assing it more. And I don't know if mine I couldn't do that because of the specific industry I was in, and I was straight commission, so the way that I was paid, or if it was like just a personality flaw, and I tried. I tried to half-ass my job. I couldn't do it. Like, the job always came above my kids and my husband, and I knew I was doing it because I could see, especially Mac, my son, like, suffering, and I would try so hard not to do it, and I just couldn't stop. Like, I would always say to myself, I would make up these, like, rules, these fake rules that I would follow. I'd be like, "Okay, after 7 o'clock at night, I'm gonna turn my phone off and my computer off, and I'm not gonna turn it back on. I won't email, and I won't do pre-qual letters, and I won't work on estimates for clients or anything like that." And then 8 o'clock would roll around and my phone would be going off and everything would be a quote unquote emergency because that's how everybody is in our industry. And I would break the rule every single time. I'd be like, well, just this one time. It's just this important client. It's just this important realtor or whatever. And I would always end up like my child would come last. And it's because your kids can't scream to you like, "Mom, I need your attention. I am acting terribly at daycare or at school or wherever because I'm not getting the attention and the love that I need from you." They can't say that to you. They don't know that. They're just acting bad. And so when they are acting bad, it's almost like easier to go towards the work because you're good at the work. You're getting paid to do the work. You're getting praised for these things that I listed out before. And it's, like, easier to justify putting your kids below the work. I don't know. It was something I could never do. I always said to myself, "Oh, I'll only, work 3 days a week." Yeah, right. That's just not how it was in my industry. So, if you are a mom that has a job where you can, cut back ideally, like, to just a couple hours a day or a few days a week or something like that, and you can turn it off when you go home, I mean, I think that's fantastic. So that your kids are still your number one priority and that the majority of your time is spent with them and raising them. I just don't know how many jobs are truly like that. And I've talked about that a lot on here in the past. Emily, one of the girls who helps produce this show and she does my website and everything like that, she's incredible. I've always said that her job is ideal because she is self employed, she's creative, but she could, if she had kids, say, "Hey, Liz is no longer my client anymore. I'm only going to do A, B, and C client who pay me the most money. And that's going to give me the time and flexibility that I need with my children." I think that's great. And I think that if parents, because clearly the schools in Hollywood are not going to talk about these things with their kids, like that's just, it's not happening. If parents tell their daughters, "Hey, you can achieve whatever you want in life. There's nothing that's holding you down, but you are probably going to want to be a mom at some point." Like, be realistic with your kids, have that conversation with your kids. Let's think about a job or a skill that you can hone that once you have kids, you can step back and be a mom if that's what your desire is to do. I just think that's a conversation that we need to have. Like, nobody was having that conversation with me. The way that the world spoke to us at that time was like, go be a man, go do everything the men are doing. Don't think about what's going to happen when you have kids because you'll just deal with it when you get there. Like, it's some secondary thought. When really at the end of the day, like, it should be the primary thought of like, how do I want to structure my life so that my family can be healthy and happy. I don't know. I just think it's conversation that's not had. And I don't really know why it's not had. I don't know if like Christians and the church have been brainwashed by the feminist propaganda so much too that it's not important, or people just assume that you will be able to adjust once you have the kids, which I think back in the day that was more plausible because you could live on one income, but now you can't. So now you have to plan accordingly. I think one of the things I have a ton of guilt for, and I'm not responsible for other people's decisions, but in my career, I can't tell you how many times I have done loans for people that bought very expensive houses, but the loan would only work with the wife's income. So in my mind now, I'm like, they, unless they sell their house, cannot afford for the wife to quit because their mortgage is so high and their bills are going to be through the roof. And so I don't know. I just feel really sad about that, that's how our culture is now. Okay. So to wrap all this up, watch the Landman show, look at the different characters. I am not in any way saying that we should aim to be like the Angela character or the Ainsley character. I think there's a lot of issues with those characters. But the point that I was trying to make is that the characteristics and the features that Taylor Sheridan decided to write in there, like the femininity and being nurturing with the old people at the nursing home and putting an emphasis on dinner and making dinner like a fun, joyful thing. I think those are interesting. And I think that we should note those as women and also note the Rebecca character. Uh, she's, without a family. She's not a mom. My guess is that she's probably, you know, in her 30s is how Taylor Sheridan like depicts her in the show. I don't know. That biological clock is ticking. So, unless she's frozen her eggs or is planning to adopt or something, when is she going to have kids? You got to like date somebody and get married generally is how it goes. I didn't get married first, but, um, that's how it typically goes. That's how it should go. And that all takes time. Usually people don't generally rush into it very quickly anymore. In fact, it seems to be the opposite. And so it's just sad to me that that's like not even a consideration of the character. Anyways. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about. So the Epstein files dropped another 3 million files on Friday. And I did an episode with my friend Nick Bryant. He is a investigative journalist. He's amazing. And my friend Alicia Owen. And it's been a while back that I did these episodes. And we then did a party. Like I hosted a party at my house. And their organization is called Epstein Justice. And so they are trying to get justice for all these victims of Epstein, but not just the Epstein victims, just victims of these blackmail trafficking rings. I highly recommend that you go read Nick Bryant's book, The Franklin Scandal. That's kind of what opened my eyes to this, like how dark this world of people in power, not just in America, but all over the whole world are. The blackmail ring thing, what I learned from Nick Bryant is like this has been in existence for a very long time. This whole honeypot setup. And it's very effective. That's why they keep happening over and over and over again. And essentially what you see is a person that's like P. Diddy or Epstein or, you name it. There's a bunch of these individuals. And a lot of them seem to be working with three-letter agencies like, I don't know, the CIA or, the intelligence community, Mossad, MI6, whoever is how it appears to be. And their aim is to get these people of influence or power and tempt them with whatever their vice of choice is. And so it's not always little kids. It's not always pedophiles. It could be just whatever, having sex with a hot 25-year-old, whatever the vices may be. It seems that they are extremely good at figuring out what people's vices are and then making it very attractive and easy and private and they have areas where these people can have privacy and access to these things that they want. And then they record them and they have this blackmail that they can then use and sell and do whatever they do with it. And when I read the Franklin Scandal book, it's like so dark. It makes me want to cry thinking about it right now because I have kids. Um, but these people are like evil, evil people. And they'll do anything to remain in power and to gain more power. And when I hosted that party, it was like a white party, and, it was, like a casino night. We actually had a lot of fun. It was a good party to raise money. I didn't realize, like, I just thought, wow, people, if they hear about this and they know it's true, that they will wanna give money to stop it or, like, do something to try to stop it. And I was very naive in that. And first of all, I don't do like fundraising, so I don't really know how to raise money, but effectively. But I also didn't realize I think when like normal, decent human beings see something that's so dark and so ugly, they like have to turn their head away from it and pretend it's not happening. And I'll give an example of this. Like I am a very the cup is half empty person. And I've always said, no, I'm not a pessimist. I'm just a realist. I see things realistically. My husband is a very cup is half full. He sees things in a very positive manner. He's way more optimistic about things than I am. That's just we're opposites on that. And that's kind of how the world is, half empty and half full kind of people. And I think that the cup is half full kind of people have a very, very, very hard time acknowledging that this is real and how like horrible and ugly it is. So for instance, like when we did the whole Epstein party, like my husband was super supportive. He didn't say, no, you can't do this or whatever. But I don't think he truly believed that like some of the stuff I was telling him that I was learning about that was happening. I don't think he like believed that it was happening or he didn't want to. And he definitely did not want to believe that these leaders in our country that we were all taught to pedestalize or idolize in some cases could be involved in such things. Like, who wants to believe that? Nobody wants to believe that. So, in the Franklin Scandal, the book that Nick wrote, he goes and investigates this huge, pedophile sex trafficking ring that happened in Omaha, Nebraska, and these kids were trafficked all over the country, to DC, all over the place. And in it, there's like a section that talks about like satanic, like ritualistic abuse. And when I was reading that, I was just kind of like, mm, do I believe this? Do I not believe this? Like, I really don't want to believe this, but I definitely believe in Satan and I believe in demons. And if you know anything about history or the Bible, like, uh, God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah over the satanic stuff that's happening. And then they have the temple of Baal where they, sacrifice children and Molech and like all these different things. And I believe the Bible. So I'm like, okay, I don't know why we think now that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Like we just think, oh, it was those ancient brutes that were partaking in that. And people now don't do that anymore. Like we're more civilized in that. And we're not. Ugh, obviously, we're just as fucked up as we always have been for all of humanity. And so when I read Nick's book and then I like got to know Nick and Alicia, who was actually a victim as a young girl and so this wasn't Epstein. The Franklin scandal was actually Larry E. King. I think that was right. Larry King, not the Larry King from the news or television, another Larry King in Nebraska. And his was a similar, like a financial operation, just like Epstein, not the exact same, but similar to that. There's always a lot of money involved with this. And it's basically, what Nick said to me that I'll never forget is like with these honeypot or blackmail rings. It's just a copy and paste of the character that's leading it. So, like, the Larry King guy, copy and paste him. Epstein, copy and paste him. Diddy, like, there, who knows how many there are of these people operating. Probably a lot more than we imagine. So, I couldn't sleep at night after I read this book because I was, like, so disheartened and upset, and then, like, once you read a book like that, you go down this rabbit hole, and then you hear all these crazy things, like, about Pizzagate, calling children, like, pizza is what the pedophile term for, like, little girls or whatever, and hot dogs are little boys, and they have this, like, whole language or whatever. And then, all the QAnon people that were saying all these crazy things like Hillary Clinton's drinking adrenochrome and blood in his basements and these satanic rituals. And you're like, no, no, this is like too crazy. Cannot be true. Pizzagate, too crazy. Cannot be true. Like, you just like, you can't let your mind go there in a way, or you don't want to. And then if you do any amount of research at all, you're like, huh, everything that I am reading and finding is pretty damning, and there are an awful lot of coincidences here. And well, then, Epstein gets arrested. And so, well, something has to be up. And then Donald Trump runs his whole campaign about how, he has Cash Patel going around to all these people and Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, we're going to release the Epstein files as soon as I'm elected. That was like one of his running points, no war, and we're going to release the Epstein files. Okay, great. I'm in. I voted for him. Every time I voted for him. Then he gets in office and he's like, Epstein who? This is a hoax. Oh, what? Excuse me? You you ran on your entire campaign. You kept saying we're going to release the Epstein files. So, like, it's a hoax or it's not a hoax. And then Pam Bondi has supposedly thousands of hours of footage on her desk. And then they say, like, oh, there's nothing. Well, thank God for like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and a couple other ones that have have been pushing for the release of these files. But they did, they released whatever 3 million files. They're all heavily redacted. And to be fair, a lot of them have not been corroborated. That is one thing I really, really, really appreciate about Nick Bryant's investigative journalism is that in his book, like the Franklin Scandal, and he also wrote Confessions of a DC Madam. He like, I think most journalists like sometimes just double corroborate things. He like triple and quadruple corroborates things. So what you're getting is not just made up or factual or adding confusion to the story. And so with the dump of the Epstein files, like, there's not a whole lot of new information. Like, we knew there wouldn't be, like, you know, whatever the most damning evidence is, still not being released because they say if it has child porn in it or it's being used in an ongoing investigation, they are not going to release it. Or if there's pedophilia in it or murder. So, like, okay, all the like serious stuff, you don't even have to release under those rules. And then everything that they did release, they, redacted the names out of. But there is like still interesting stuff coming out, like the fact that they would kind of throw their homeboy Peter Thiel under the bus and Bill Gates. So that was kind of a funny one. Bill Gates was like begging Epstein for antibiotics because he got an STD from these Russian hookers. And he needed the antibiotics to privately slip to his wife, Melinda, without her knowing to cover up his STD. So I guess all the money in the world can't protect you against STDs. But my whole point in all that is none of these people are having justice brought to them. And after I had my party with Nick Bryant, Alicia Owen, I kind of like stepped back from it a little bit because not that I didn't believe any of it happened. Like, I believe more than ever that this stuff is happening. and has happened for forever. It's talked about in the Bible and history everywhere. Um, one thing, this is just a side note. Uh, before Mac was born, Luke and I went and did a tour of Pompeii, and we just paid this random like tour guide. They just have all these like people kind of hanging out there that will give you tours of the ruins of Pompeii. And this guy is like talking to us and he's super knowledgeable. And at first I was like, this is going to be a waste of money, but we didn't want to walk around just a bunch of like, stone and have no idea what we were looking at or anything. And I was like, I don't know, maybe 8 months or close to 9 months pregnant with Mac at the time, which you shouldn't have been traveling then, but I did it anyways. I didn't care. And I'm like hugely pregnant and we're walking down the streets and he keeps pointing out all these brothels where he was like, you could get whatever you want. And then he just like, he keeps pointing them out. And then he's like, like kids, like pedophilia. And I was like, I asked him, I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, it's not just brothels with like women or men in them. There were brothels with kids, like where they were selling kids for sex. And I was like, what? And I remember just being like absolutely mortified by that and kind of not believing him, but then being like, oh, well, I don't really know why this guy would lie to me about this. And then looking it up later and being like, holy shit, he was not lying about this. I didn't know you. I always just thought kind of like pedophilia was like hidden in the dark, or it was just some like fucked up uncle who had really bad like mental problems that would molest his niece or something. Like I didn't know you could just walk down the street in these ancient cities and walk into a place and pay to have sex with a kid with like, that's okay. What? Like, I don't know. Makes me want to throw up. And so then I'm like, no wonder God rained down lava, molten lava all over all these people. Like, yeah, that's what you get for like not protecting these kids. Oh my God. So, needless to say, and all of that, with the Epstein Justice stuff, I have so much admiration for my friends Nick and Alicia and what they're doing with Epstein Justice. What they're trying to do is get all the politicians involved to demand justice and demand real inquiry and a real investigation into Epstein. And so far, it has not been done. The closest thing we've gotten is what Massey has accomplished with getting this, the dump of these files or whatever. Uh, so, God, it makes me sick thinking about all that to say is I was getting so angry because I was like, how can these people that are in power are politicians? And when I talk about these people, these are people that I admired, like Bush Sr. He was involved with the Larry King scandal. You can read about that in the Franklin's scandal that Nick Bryant wrote about. But also, like, Bush Sr. is in these Epstein files, this dump that just came out. There's an email that's saying, like, oh, okay, didn't know that Bush was involved. And the allegations is that he, like, raped this guy on a yacht. And so, like, I used to admire Bush my whole life. That's what good Republicans did, right? Um, this is everyone, Republicans, Democrats. Oh, one of the most shocking ones to me, which I'm like pissed about, is Peter Attia, this like doctor that I love listening to. He's like one of these longevity, health gurus. Apparently, big Epstein buddy on the island all the time, pedophile. Cool, man. That's great. So I would talk to Alicia about it and I would just get so angry. I'd be like, I don't understand how nothing is happening to these people. It appears that they can just get away with everything for forever because if you have enough power and influence, you'll be protected by everyone. President Trump is protecting himself and all these other people. And it's just like, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any justice ever. And it was making me like sick. Like I couldn't sleep at night, like so upset. Like, how can people not care about these kids and the women, and the men, all the people that they're trafficking and doing this stuff to, all the victims. And Alicia has said to me several times, um, Liz, it's not up to us. It's up to God, and they will receive the justice that they deserve. And she's right. And it's a very hard pill for me to swallow because I want them to receive the justice that they deserve now. Uh, but it's probably not going to happen ever. It appears as if it's not going to happen. You can just, if you're Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton, you can do whatever you want for forever. They've been subpoenaed and they're just ignoring the subpoenas. I didn't even know you could do that. I thought if you were subpoenaed to court, you had to go, but apparently you don't. I don't know. The whole thing makes me so sad. I commend my friends at Epstein Justice for continuing their good fight. I hope that the victims receive some sort of justice in their lifetime because they were terrorized as kids, and then they continue to be terrorized throughout their life by these people that are just trying to silence them and keep them quiet. But I'm not God, so I don't get to decide who gets justice and when. God takes care of that, and I gotta be okay with that. So, anyways, I'm done with Trump. Voted for him 3 times. Wish I wouldn't have done that. To be clear, I wouldn't have voted for Kamala. But definitely done with Trump. Anybody that protects, pedophiles and is involved with pedophiles, I have no time for. Definitely won't be voting for JD Vance if he runs in the future because, he was bankrolled by Peter Thiel, who was all over the Epstein files. And he hasn't come out and condemned any of this or had much to say about it, so won't be voting for him. So, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. It's sad. It's horrible. But I think it's true, and I think it's far worse than we ever imagined. So, all right, I can't talk about this anymore. It's making me sick. Have a good week.